Hi folks, this is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report. I want to tell you something that happened a couple nights ago, and because of the weather I've been able to get out and try to get an hour or two before dark to fish. And one of the things that's become apparent to me, and it happened 2 nights ago, I got to this pool, and this night, by the way, was one of those nights you dream about where the fish were extremely active. And so I get to this pool and I cast out, and I'm using little tiny baits. I've talked in another report about using a little hellgrammite. I also been using a bait that's tiny. It's a crappie bait called a beetle spin. It's a hairpin spinner with a little blade and then a little 1.5 inch like grub, double-tailed grub that's at the end of the hook. So the fish see this little spinner spinning and glowing and rattling in the water, and they see this little bait behind it, and the fish have really been reacting. Well, here's what I wanted to really tell you about that is a discovery for me, is I cast out, and I get to this pool, and I'm a very, very careful and cautious. I try to be a quiet fisherman. So I'm standing there trying not to make any commotion so they don't know I'm there, and I cast out. And my lure hits the water, and 40 feet away, and I'm not exaggerating, I'm telling you, I couldn't believe this. 40 feet away, that's over 10 yards away, this fish sees it hit the water, and I see this wake coming at missile-type speed through the water towards the bait. Somehow it didn't hit, and I cast out again, and I wasn't able to get that fish. Well, a little while later, casting in a completely different area, the same thing happens. And far, far away, this fish sees this bait hit, and here comes the wake again. Now, what does this mean? What I'm trying to say, and what I want you to realize, is this illustrated to me that fish see things in the water much farther away than we might think. And this area that you're fishing, that's their home. So they're aware of every rock, every obstruction in that water, and they're also aware of what's going on. So anything new that hits that water, they seem to be aware of from a far distance. So remember that. Remember that it doesn't matter how you are fishing. If you're jigging vertically for lake trout, like I've talked before, and that jig is coming down through the water, lake trout may be 30 feet away that are on the bottom. Notice something new is coming into their area. They see that jig and they'll go over to see if it's something they want to hit. Now, the moral of this story was I had a fantastic night. And what these wakes were, they were big fish. I wasn't sure at this point. Were they muskies, which I figured they must be to make this kind of commotion in the water, or were they big giant bass, which I discovered were in the pool that I was fishing. Now, before the night ended, and I must say this all took place within an hour, I caught 5 smallmouth bass that I landed and had to release and measured that were over 20 inches long. This is unheard of. This is something that maybe in all the years that I've fished, this was one of the most phenomenal nights. But I also lost maybe double that many that would come out of the water. And let me tell you what these bass were doing when they erupted. I'd hook them, and these giant bass would fly out of the water. And again, first of all, I've told you that these fish would see it from 30 or 40 feet away. And you might wonder, is that really true? Well, also, I'll tell you what was happening. These bass were jumping. Now, I can't measure this, but I'm looking. They were jumping out of the water at least 3 to 4 feet in the air. I've never seen anything quite like it. How they were it was almost like they were being catapulted out of the water. It was an extraordinary experience. It's a night of fishing. By the way, I did catch a muskie too. One of those wakes hit the little tiny beetle spin that I'm using, a tiny crappie lure, and I was able to bring that muskie in. All along, I thought, it's fighting a little bit different than a bass. It's not catapulting like these smallmouth do 4 and 5 times. And I get it in. It was about a 28-inch muskie that I was able to get that hook out. It didn't take it in deeply, so it didn't sever the line. I was able to get it out of the corner of its mouth. It was a wonderful night of fishing, but also of discovery. I realized that a little bait like the beetle spin might be the only thing I'd ever need fishing these streams. And I'm going to catch big fish as well as little fish on this. The other thing that I realized also, and I've seen this over and over again, is that magic hour when the fishing can be fantastic in these streams is 2 hours before it starts to get dark. 1 hour before it starts to get dark, they seem to phase off that hunting range. And I've seen it through the summer as well as now. So that, let's say it gets dark at 7 o'clock. From 5 to 6 seems to be that tremendous hour of fishing these tributaries. This is a real special year that way. All year we've had high water. All year the fishing hasn't been as great for me. Now I've hit a bonanza time, and I'm trying to take every advantage I can until the weather shifts, the water gets higher once rains start coming, and the water gets colder. That's gonna motivate a tremendous shift in behavior. Until then, boy, this is fantastic. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report.